ترحيبا كبيرا بهذا الحفل العظيم، وأن أشكر زملائي على أنهم منحوني هذه الثقة بأن أتكلم باسمهم وبالنيابة عنهم. أرجو أن أكون عند حسن ظنكم. On the first day of class, Professor Marshall Gans stood in front of 120 students and asked, "Where is the hope?" 2 years ago, I was struggling to find the hope. I was struggling to remember the reasons I had decided to pursue a career in the study of the Middle East. But locked in a classroom with Professor Gans, struggling to write my paper, he wouldn't take "I don't know" for an answer. He kept pushing and pushing and pushing. "Why do you care?" he asked. "I don't know." "Why?" "I don't know." "Why?" "I don't know." Why? "Because," I blurted out, "I want to make Lebanon a place that I can live in." "Bingo," he said. I was confused. That seemed like a very selfish reason to care. After all, what right did I have from over here to make Lebanon somewhere that I wanted to be in? But the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. Aren't we all, in our own ways, making the world a place that we can live in? Whether you're a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, or a politician, your aim is to change something that matters to you, so that you can live in a place where your ideas are heard, where your dreams can become a reality, a place where your life matters. Lebanon is home. The Middle East is home. But for a while, I had lost the hope. Many years ago, as I filled out my undergraduate college applications listing politics as my major, I was bursting with youthful optimism. I could vividly remember Beirut during the Syria Revolution. I remembered that more than a quarter of Lebanese people took to the streets to demand freedom. I remembered photos of beautiful Beirut, where only the Lebanese flag stood proud. And I remembered the heady euphoria of those days when anything seemed possible. My parents tried to dissuade me from studying politics. Like all Arab parents, they envisioned only 2 career paths for their children, engineering or medicine. Do something useful, something that will give you actual skills, my dad would say. Upon hearing that I was planning on studying politics, my family friends would lament, "Ah, she had such potential, what a shame." But I was filled with a combination of stubbornness and optimism that only an inexperienced 18-year-old could have, and I would not budge. During my first year in college, the Arab Spring erupted, and I was ecstatic. Watching the young protesters in Egypt and Tunisia and Syria and Libya and Yemen demand freedom, equality, and justice, I felt vindicated in my optimism. Once more, it was a time when anything seemed possible, a time when young Arabs refused to be silenced, a time when they said enough and demanded what was rightfully theirs, a time when they made history. A few years later, that optimism had vanished. There seemed to be no good news coming out of the Middle East. The young people who had so bravely fought for change were either imprisoned or in exile. All of the revolutions had failed. There were 5 bloody civil wars and the worst refugee crisis in modern history. My religion had been warped and twisted, used to justify genocide and horrendous acts of barbarity. I watched as our children washed up on Europe's shores. So, on that first day of class, when Professor Gans asked, "Where is the hope?" I did not know. For the first time, I questioned whether I could make a change, whether we could make a difference. But only 2 years later, I found the hope, here at Harvard, among all of you. The hope is in this room. The hope is in each and every one of you. Over the past 2 years, I have been surrounded by young Arabs who share an unparalleled commitment to their causes, pride in their heritage, and determination to make a difference. I worked with many of you on organizing Harvard Arab Weekend, which was a resounding success because of your vision and your efforts. No one could have been at Harvard Arab Weekend and left without feeling inspired, without feeling that we cannot but shape a better future. The conference brought together more than 1,000 young Arabs who were eager to engage in debate, to teach and be taught. The conference brought together Arabs who refused to be defined and confined by the stories that others tell about them. But more importantly, the conference built the bridges between the young Arabs who were the hope. Yet, the moments that I will cherish the most are those times when we were sitting at Park or in the forum, trying to put off writing another 10-page paper. Like all good Arabs, we love to talk, a lot. We talked and schemed and planned and argued. We talked about what it means to be an Arab today. We talked about the future of the Sykes-Picot borders. We determined how to improve youth employment in the region. We mapped out what Syria's transition would look like. We debated how to end the occupation. In our 2 years here, we practically solved all the problems of the Middle East. Here at Harvard, we are told that nothing is impossible. We are told that we can accomplish anything that we set our minds to. We have shared these corridors with presidents and prime ministers, world-renowned scientists and actresses, billionaires and humanitarians. Harvard brought the world to us, and what a privilege it has been. But as cliched as it sounds, with great privilege comes great responsibility. We are here today at the Harvard Kennedy School, where President Kennedy's words are inscribed on every building. Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. These words were written by Khalil Gibran in an address to Lebanese parliamentarians more than 30 years before JFK spoke them. And they present us with a choice. Are you a politician asking what your country can do for you? Or are you a zealous one asking what you can do for your country? He wrote. If you are the first, then you are a parasite. If the second, then you are an oasis in the desert. I'd like to think that we have all chosen to be oases in the desert. We have all chosen to make the Middle East somewhere that everyone can live with dignity, regardless of their religion, ethnicity, or gender. This vision may sound as naively optimistic as the one I had as a stubborn 18-year-old, but this time it's grounded not in naivete, but in a firm belief that oppression and repression cannot and will not triumph. I spent the past few days reflecting on what I have learned at Harvard, and the single most important lesson has been the realization that failure is inevitable. And that realization has been liberating. Like many of you here, I was driven as much by a fear of failure as a desire for success. And that fear inhibited rather than encouraged my ambitions. But here, I learned that failure builds resilience. And more importantly, it breaks the chains of fear, freeing you that take risks that might just pay off. By all accounts, the Arab Spring has failed. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't, that we mustn't try again. Let us use our privilege, our knowledge, and our networks to bring about the change that we want to see. Let us speak not on behalf of, but with those who have not been as privileged as we have been. To my parents, Sahar al-Nazim Marzouk, and my grandfather, Abdul Latif al-Marzouk, thank you so much for sacrificing so much so that I could be here today. I promise to try to make you proud every day. To all the proud parents beaming with pride, we would not be here without your unconditional love, support, and sacrifice. So thank you. Finally, I would like to conclude with one of my favorite passages written by Khalil Gibran that is especially timely today. تتصارع في الشرق الأوسط اليوم فكرتان قديمة وجديدة. الأفكار القديمة ستنقرض بسبب ضعفها واستهلاكها. هناك في الشرق الأوسط يقظة تتحدى السبات. في أرجاء الشرق الأوسط التي كانت مقبرة واسعة ينتصب فتيان الربيع ينادون سكان القبور أن ينهضوا ويتوجهوا صوب الآفاق الجديدة. هناك في آفاق الشرق الأوسط اليوم تباشير قيامة واعدة. There are in the Middle East today two challenging ideas, old and new. The old ideas will vanish because they are weak and exhausted. There is in the Middle East an awakening that defies slumber. In the fields of the Middle East, which have been a large burial ground, stand the youth of spring, calling the occupants of the sepulchres to rise and march towards the new frontiers. There is, on the horizon of the Middle East, a new awakening. This is our new frontier. We are the youth of spring. Let us always be proud to be Arab, and let us never lose the hope.